Hello, everybody. Welcome into NBA Front Office Show. No, it is not Trevor Lane bringing you in. It's me. Trevor's still off on a cruise ship somewhere in the middle of the ocean. I think the Caribbean, maybe the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know, somewhere in the ocean. Joining me, not me, in the co-host seat. Normally, it's Bryce Simon, Motor City Hoops over on Twitter. Our buddy comes in. Bryce is one of the very best draft people that I know. You may remember from our very long NBA draft recap show, which Bryce, we got a lot of love for
Oh,
from a
cool.
ton of people. We hit it at the right time. People were like, this was great. I listened to this when I was driving to my 4th of July, outing with the family and everything. But thanks for jumping in, man. I really appreciate you joining.
No, I'm always excited to be here. I think this is my third, fourth time, something like this. I told you the first time you guys asked me on, it was a bucket list opportunity. It was so cool. I still listen to the podcast all of the time. And so anytime I get a chance to join you guys, and then you guys let me contribute to the basketball bulletin as well. And so you guys have done a lot of really cool things for me. I appreciate you guys so much.
We're super happy to have you, man. Yeah, you've done great work, and just I'll shout it out here: the basketball bulletin. More great stuff to come with that as well. Trevor's been cranking out videos over there. I'll have some stuff in the off season that'll be kind of less roster cap related stuff, which is I write about over at Spot Track, and a lot more about maybe some strategy things, some thoughts around some of that stuff with teams. So we're exploring some of the different features on Substack that we can use. But what we're going to do here today, we're going to kind of do a mixture of the draft recap and a little bit of what we saw at Summer League. We're going to kick off what will be a series of shows here where we're going to break down division by division all of like the rostered players that could be maybe see action in the NBA this year. And what I define a rostered player as is obviously someone who has a real standard NBA contract, a two-way contract, a guy who's got a training camp contract or is likely to get one, or somebody whose draft rights are retained by a team. This year, we don't have too many of those. I think we're up to 48 out of the 58 picks have already signed. There were not a lot of true draft and stash guys this year. So handful of those guys will pop up in this. And then there might be one or two other guys that we'll bring up and talk about just because they may be a little bit more interesting. Maybe they're with the team. Team might be bringing them back. Maybe they're going to show up somewhere else. We're starting to see post-Summer League, some of the guys getting – it's hard to say poached because it's not really they're free agents, so not being poached, but are signing up with other teams that they didn't play with. But we're going to start with division, Bryce, that you should know pretty well, I hope.
Yeah.
Here. So we're going to go in order alphabetically by city, and we're going to start with the Chicago Bulls. And the first player we're going to talk about, which is good because if we started off with some like training camp obscure, invite people with what is this? But we're going to talk about Modest Buzelis, one of the top prospects in this year's draft class, went to the Bulls. One of my favorite things was I think I counted 7 different times he referenced some version of he's not happy about slipping so far in the draft. He's happy he went to the Bulls. That's his hometown team, but he thought he was going to go in that top 10, probably even closer to the top 5. There was a lot of buzz that he might have been the Pistons guy at 5 before they went with Ron Holland, who we'll talk about later in the show. But Buzelis, I love when a guy comes in and it's not like manufactured anger, like he's actually playing with a chip on his shoulder. And you could kind of see him play with that. He's tough. He plays a little mad, plays a little angry. So I'm excited about his game.
Yeah, I think this goes all the way back to he called out Zachary Rizachet during the pre-draft process. Like, I'll take him one-on-one. Like, let's set that up or whatever. And that very first initial one, I'm like, okay, like, what is this? Like, I don't mind it. I don't care.
Sure.
I played college basketball. I love the trash talk. It is what it is. It's some of the funnest stuff. But I was like you said, sometimes it is manufactured, but it seems like this is really who he is. And you need that in the NBA, Keith. At the end of the day, whatever people want to think about it, this is a big time league where you better have ultimate confidence in yourself or you're not going to last very long, no matter how talented or skilled you are. So yeah, out of all due respect to Andrew Funk here. Yeah, let's start off with Modest Buzelis,
Andrew Funk catching a stray. Andy just got waived.
I know.
Literally that's why just got waived like moments ago.
That's why I brought him up. I love Andrew Funk. He played in the Patriot League just like me, other than he played for the rival Buck now, so that brings it back down. But no, I like the aggressiveness of Buzelis. I thought he was very aggressive. I thought you could see some of the ball handling, the touch, some of the stuff off the bounce, attacking the basket. The thing was, he just didn't make shots. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot. We can't fully buy into percentages in summer league, Keith. Like we'd be hard pressed to do that 5-game sample, but it was a question coming out of the Ignite as well. And he definitely didn't do anything to make people feel better about it in this sample.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Let's pause there on that for an overarching thing, as you're going to hear throughout this episode and the future episodes covering the same sort of stuff. These guys, if a guy was a really good shooter in college and didn't shoot well at summer league, I completely write it off. I don't really care. If a guy was not a good shooter in college or the G League or overseas and then didn't shoot it in summer league, I just make a little note just to say, let's check in on this again in training camp and then in the early months of the season, because some of what's going to happen is, and you know this as well as I do, some of these guys are going to come in, they're going to have their shots completely taken apart here over the next couple months, and then they're going to rebuild them over the next couple of months as they go into training camp. That's going to be one of the things teams do with these guys, because the summer league process, in case people don't know, you basically go hellbent through draft workouts. Then you get drafted. Then you go to the city for some form of introductory press conference, hang out for maybe a day or two. Then you kind of start summer league practices with a whole bunch of dudes you met yesterday and probably never played with in most cases. And then you go into playing summer league. So there's not a lot of time for individual skill work. They're not exactly putting in like packages for guys and things like that. It is like, this is I had somebody describe it to me once as extremely organized pickup. Yeah. And that is a lot of what it feels like. But that said, we still do want to take things away. But you're going to hear us probably say versions for a lot of the, especially in this division, didn't shoot it well. That doesn't mean we're out on them as a shooter. It doesn't necessarily mean we're concerned, but it's just something to note. So, whatever level of concern you want to have with it, I'm okay with folks, applying whatever level of concern. I just wouldn't apply complete full out panic that a guy's not going to shoot, with the exception of, and we'll call them out when we get there, guys who've been around for like 2, 3, 4 years.
Yes.
If they're still not shooting it, I'm willing to say at this point, they're probably not gonna.
Yeah, that's a great point, that there is a difference in a rookie, a second-year player, a guy who's played in the NBA real minutes. Like, those guys usually stand out and should, because of the different level of competition that they've already experienced. I also want to just piggyback real quick. I made this point recently over on Game Theory. These guys also may not have played 5-on-5 in general for a while. I think we were talking about maybe Rob Dillingham or Reed or whoever, and they lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament in March. Well, you don't play fives during the pre-draft process in general. You definitely don't do it at team workouts. A lot of these guys, the major prospects, didn't play at the combine. They did everything else but that. And then you're not doing it between the combine and the start of summer league. Maybe they play in some pickup games that I'm not aware of, but in general, they haven't played, like you said, 5-on-5 for months. And anybody that's done this, you just got reacclimated to this. I saw the other day, you either tweeted it or talked about it. It's different, right? Like, it takes a little bit getting, no matter how good your feel for the game is, how good you are, it takes just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point there too, to just call that out, is that some guys, it's going to be, some guys were a little messy. We saw certainly some players had challenges with turnovers. We'll reference it with some of the veteran players too. Sometimes they're being asked to do something completely different. Yes. And sometimes you can see it. And then other times it's completely confirmed by the team. Like I remember a couple years ago, the Orlando Magic, it was Jalen Suggs had a ton of turnovers. I'm pretty sure it's Jalen Suggs. And they're like, well, we don't really care. We're trying to find out, can he be a point guard? We know he can defend point guards, but can he run an offense? And those are the kind of things you find out about these guys right away is, all right, we want, this guy's been basically a stationary shooter. We want him shooting off the dribble. We want you, can you create your own looks? What does that look like? So we'll try to call that out too, where it's appropriate. Because there's definitely a couple guys in this division who jumped out to me. I'm like, they didn't go in, but he was getting to the shots. Yeah. That's step one. Now let's go. So to wrap, we're 9 minutes in and we've talked half of one player. So about what I expected. Yes. But this is all good groundwork to set the stage for this, and we'll go quicker now. And trust me, guys, I will apologize up front if we hit on a player and we're like, there just wasn't much there. We're probably going to kind of skip by him. The idea is to hit a whole bunch of guys. We're going to try to hit over 30 players here without this being 3 hours long. So let's get moving here. Last thing on Buzelis for me, I thought he competed really well defensively,
Yes.
held up a lot better than I thought he was gonna. Hands were pretty quick, both for steals and blocks. I averaged 2 steals and 2 blocks per game. I'm not going to say he's going to be that kind of player in the NBA. I don't think he will be, but at least he was there. He was affecting the shots and he's challenging guys. And I think that's good. And he was doing it without, sometimes you see these guys and it almost, I have to remind myself because it's like, man, this guy is playing killer defense. I'm like, oh, but he had 9 fouls every summer league game. like that's all right. At some point they just stopped calling them, right? So it's like let's balance that out. He did a pretty good job without committing an excessive amount of fouls, which I was impressed with as well.
And it should be noted, Modest also averaged almost a steal a game and 2 blocks per game in the G League Ignite season. So again, when you guys look at the Ignite, make sure you scroll all the way to full season stats. It does really weird on Real GM how they spread those out. So just always like to give
that. It is the
caveat.
best place to find them because you can't get them anywhere else.
100%. That wasn't a knock on Real GM. I assume it's how the Ignite or the G League sends in their stats. Not the Ignite. They're not sending in any stats anymore. Another stray. I'm not usually the catching strays guy, Keith, but 10 minutes in, I've done it on accident twice. I do think Modest hasn't a chance to be a quality defender, and his foot speed isn't great, but the length, the second efforts, he's very athletic. He had some highlight dunks, which doesn't always translate, but it just kind of shows that vertical explosion. So I'm glad you brought that up. I think with his length, he has a chance to be that. I kind of came away liking what I saw overall from Buzelis during Summer League.
Yeah, same. I was really happy with him. All right, this is where we'll start to make up a little bit of ground here in the show. So the next couple guys, Marcus Damask, he is coming in on an Exhibit 10 deal with the Bulls. He was pretty good in college. Put up some pretty good all-around numbers, but he barely played in Las Vegas and played 11.3 minutes per game. Didn't really have a chance to show us very much. Here, my worry with him is he didn't shoot it well in college. I don't know if he's going to shoot it well at the pro level. If he doesn't, he'll be strictly a G League and overseas guy.
Yep. Same thing on Marcus for me. My notes, he's a strong physical player. I think he's skilled. Like you said, he really filled up the box score at Illinois with 5 rebounds, 4 assists, not a big defensive playmaker, but my second line of notes, Keith, just not sure he can shoot it and how the offensive game translates. Like that's the thing with him.
Yep. Henry Drell is the next guy. He was a two-way player with the Bulls a year ago. Does not look like right now. Now we'll see. We're going to talk about Andrew Funk, who was on a two-way, just got waived. With Henry Drell, he's in a position where he is someone who maybe comes back now that the Bulls have reopened the two-way spot. Maybe he does come back. He's more one more. I'm not too worried about anything from Summer League. Again, shot it terribly. Most of the Bulls players shot awful in Summer League. But I'm not really worried about him there. I kind of know who he is from the G League, which is solid, competitive G League guy. Can translate to maybe an end of the bench two-way level guy in the NBA, but there's not a lot more there.
Yeah, it was interesting. He didn't shoot a lot of threes in Summer League, and then you look at his G League stats, and he, the last couple of years, he was 4 a game, 5.2 a game. The percentages still weren't great. I thought he, moved the ball well, a couple really nice downhill drives, finished with his left hand, but that was about he stood I noticed him. There was some good things there, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this guy might be able to be a game changer, a diamond in the rough type of guy. Didn't really stand out to me in that way.
Yeah, the next guy, Andrew Funk. We've referenced it a couple times how he just got waived today. We're recording this on Wednesday. He got waived Wednesday afternoon. They used him like a shooting specialist in Summer League, but he didn't make shots.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, right? If you're supposed to be a shooter and you're not making your shots, that's going to be a problem. He's, again, another guy. He'll catch on somewhere in the G League, maybe on another two-way. Maybe he gets a 10-day call-up from a team at some point in the year, but just, was not the best summer for him in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. Where if you were a shooting specialist, we tell our high school kids this all the time because these kids want to be shooting specialists, right? They want to be, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. Okay, that's fine. You got to make shots then if that's what you want to do. And there's a lot of pressure. It's not as easy as what people think. There's a lot of pressure with that. And if you don't make shots, then what else are you doing? So I always have a soft spot for those type of guys. Again, he is from the Patriot League, so always cheer for them. But as you mentioned, just wasn't able to knock them down in summer league shooting 18%.
Yeah, that's brutal. Like that's one where it's like, yeah, this is not good.
Yeah.
All right, Julian Phillips. He was maybe the Bulls' best player. You could, I'm not going to argue too much over him or DJ Stewart or Modest Buzelis or even Adama Sanogo, but Phillips was up there. And the nice thing was, this is a rostered guy. He's already on a contract with the team. What I was most excited about with him was, as a rookie, he was mostly a stationary shooter. Other guys set him up. He did a lot off the dribble in Las Vegas, and that's always encouraging. And he did it, and actually those shots went in, which was good to see. So I'm not, again, with any of these, if we express optimism and we're excited about it, just be excited with the caveat of it's only summer league. We're not crowning these guys Hall of Famers or anything like that, or even saying they're going to be even in a rotation. But I think Phillips is going to be a guy who over the course of the year, probably if he comes in with a really strong training camp, it's going to be hard to keep him off the floor because they think he can do a lot of different things for a Bulls team that very much seems like it's in transition.
Yeah, this is one where, and this is how this happens, is if it's a guy that you liked pre-draft, you tend to get a little more excited. Julian Phillips is a guy I liked pre-draft. He was somebody that I bought into. I thought he had a little bit more to his offensive game than whatever he got to show at Tennessee. I thought he had real good defensive impact. And so this was really interesting to see. So some of my notes from this, you can see the slashing athleticism. I think the most impressive play he made, played through the chest of Andre Jackson Jr., got to the free throw line. Another one, he finished through the chest of Livingston, who was contesting with verticality. He just has to put the rest of the skill level together. The disruption is there. The offensive rebounding is there. The cutting, he's got to make shots. And one reason he looked as good as he did, he made 37% on almost 5 attempts a game. Julian Phillips shoots it at that level. The athleticism, the defense, the off the ball cutting, that's all good enough for him to be a rotational NBA player. He just has to prove it now if he gets his chance.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's you now have to translate the big summer into a good camp, into a good start to the season. That's how you get there. All right, Adama Sanogo, the Bulls are bringing him back on another two-way contract. This to me is the kind of guy you want to keep working with. There's something there. He plays really hard. He's a pretty solid finisher around the rim. He can get up just enough to block some shots, contest some shots, pretty good rebounder. Give me those guys all day long for one of the 3 G League spots. We're going to talk about a couple more players like this on these other teams in this division specifically. But I really like what he did in Summer League just with his competitiveness. You can see it stands out. And sometimes what I like to watch for is the guys who go really, really hard. Sometimes the other guys kind of shrink a little bit from it. And that to me is one of those things where that does matter. That really does matter to me. And you could see Sanogo just came in this year with a better understanding of, all right, I kind of understand what I'm doing now. I'm not as lost. The game's not so fast.
Yeah, he always impresses me with how hard he works. You talked about the offensive boards, averaged a ton of those. If you don't box out Adama Sanogo, he's going to go get an offensive rebound. And sometimes even when you do, he sets those highway screens, the Martin Gortat highway screens, the ball screens. I always love those. It's one of my favorites.
Sometimes I wonder how intentional they are if you just got in the way. But hey, we'll take it.
Either way. The one thing I'd be interested, he shot 52 threes his last year at Connecticut, 37%, nothing crazy, nothing to write home about. But then he didn't shoot any this last year in the G League. I wonder if at some point Chicago would like him to extend that, or maybe they tried. And once he moved out those extra couple feet to the NBA 3-point line, he just wasn't able to do it. I don't know, but it was something I was a little bit intrigued by his last year at Connecticut, and it hasn't shown so far early in his career.
Yeah, I remember the book on him being pre-draft was if he can extend his range, this guy's like at least a backup level big in the NBA. And then in that, like you said, it didn't happen. Like we didn't see, and it wasn't that he didn't even take them. Like
Yes,
that was,
correct.
it just completely went away. But I think you're right. That's something I always encourage people to do. You think it's not a big deal to move back to the NBA line. Go find a place where you can shoot with an NBA line and then shoot from the college line, and it's massive. Like it's almost like it feels like you're pulling up like from Steph and Trae Young range and shooting these shots, and those are just the standard NBA shots. Then go shoot from where those guys shoot from, and you're like, I don't even know how they ever make one that isn't a strict 1-footed running heave shot, because it's crazy.
I recently got a chance a couple weeks ago to get some shots up on an NBA practice court, and it was the first time I'd really had an NBA 3-point line. And I haven't shot, I don't go regularly and shoot, but it took me 10 or 15 minutes to figure it out and just get the distance without feel like I was completely changing my form. And eventually I did, but it's a real change. It seems like a very long ways away whenever you first step out there.
That's why the couple times I've played on an NBA court, I stuck to corner threes.
Yes,
those are still short.
Those are my least favorite threes, though. I hate the corner.
Really? See, I love the corner three.
No, like the wing for me.
The wing is good. I used to. So I'm going to derail us for a moment here. I used to play in this CYO league, which was funny because I didn't even grow up Catholic, and like that's a whole other thing. But we played, and every team there pretty much played 2-3 zone. So like I was a okay high school player, but in that league, like I was one of the better players, and I would dribble up the court, and they would play the wide 2-3 zone, and I would just dribble right to the top of the arc and just shoot threes until the coach was like, go out and cover him. And then the guy would come over and I'd just be like, cut through, and then I'll hit you with the bounce pass at the nail, and we'll get baskets all day. But yeah, it was just funny how you develop whatever shots there, right? So all right, last guy for the Chicago Bulls. We talked about Sanogo hitting kind of those runway screens. DJ Stewart made good use of those and good use of all of his time, enough so he earned a 2-way contract with the Bulls. He was probably the best Bull in Summer League, 17 points per game, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, shot it really well, 47% overall, 40% from 3, 87% from the line. Really did a good job. You can see he's been around now pro for a couple years because he just kind of had that it factor over a couple of these younger guards who he was able to work through. Big thing for him, like so many, is will the shooting translate and carry over? If it does, DJ Stewart could play himself into a real backup point guard role. He's got enough athleticism and enough skill. It's just going to be other shots going to fall for him.
He stood out to me the most in the Pistons Bulls games I watched, not games. Even before I went back and rewatched some games for this specific episode, he really stood out. Just the pace he plays with, he in the ball screens, change pace, attack, snake, puts guys in jail, all of those different things. And then defensively, he was just taking the ball from guys whenever. It reminded me a little bit of what, Scottie Pippen Jr., just you could tell was a guy that had been around and just knew how to play compared to everybody else. I'm not saying DJ Stewart was as good as him, but DJ Stewart definitely knew how to play. You could tell he had some experience. I would agree. I thought he was probably the guy that stood out the most to me as I would watch Bulls games. I thought he played really well, but it's funny how often we always come back to the same thing. Can he knock down shots? And that's the thing with, half of the guys we've talked about, even the big guy in Adama Sanogo, can they put the ball in the basket from the 3-point line?
Yep, absolutely. All right, another guy. Now we're switching over to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We covered all the Bulls that are rostered or, maybe around the fringes of the roster. Amani Bates. It is easy to see when you watch Amani Bates. If you just stopped watching the minute the ball left his hands, you'd be like, I can see why this guy was one of the top recruits in the world when he was coming into college. Then if you watch all the way through, it's like, oh, it's not always going in. But that said, I thought the Cavs, and then I called a couple people and confirmed, they really wanted to see him creating off the dribble, create shots for himself, but create more efficient shots, because he created a lot of his own stuff in the G League last year. But this year was, now let's get to really good ones. Again, didn't shoot it really well. I'm not overly concerned about that. I'm more impressed with he got there, and that was really good. And then what I thought was really impressive was not only did he attempt and make passes to a lot of guys, they were ones he never would have tried a year ago. And that to me is really good growth. You see it, it looks completely different. And I thought he looked really, really good in that respect there, where it, it was pretty solid for him all around.
Yeah, I thought he had two nice transition passes in the game that I watched. Really nice passes that I don't think he would have given up, to your point. Then he had a great backdoor pass. It just shows the overall skill level he has. My thing with him, though, and that's good to hear that Cleveland wanted him playing on ball in that way. Because my thing is, I think he's ultimately an off the ball player. So a
Great.
couple of my favorite plays were some off ball relocations that were catch and shoot 3-point attempts. I don't even know if he made either one, but he relocated at the right time to the right spot, kept the right floor spacing. And then he had a very good on ball defensive possession versus Ryan Rollins. He ended up getting called for a foul, but he was engaged. And that's the thing that won't let me quit on Imani Bates. I haven't always been high on him, but you can see the skill, you can see the talent, and you can see that he can guard, he can pass. It's just like, it's like the notch needs to get turned just a little bit further
Yep.
and really lock into that aspect of his game. And I think he would find success.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of stuff that went on with his collegiate career,
Yeah,
but you can almost see that where it's like why coaches could get frustrated at times because it's
sure.
like there's more here. Like you can do it. We just need you to. Like we just need to see it regularly from you. But his contract status kind of interesting. He's still a restricted free agent. He hasn't signed. My guess is the Cavs are going to do one of two things. Either he doesn't want to take like essentially a stretched out minimum deal to be on their bench. I don't think he wants to do that. So this may be one that drags, and then he may ultimately just sign and come back on a two-way. But I don't know that he makes it through the year on a two-way. I think the Cavs will probably convert him eventually because I think second year in the G League, probably it's like, all right, I kind of have some stuff figured out here now. And he may be somebody by the time we get around to the showcase, just ahead of Christmas, it may be like, oh man, Bates's stats are outrageous. And let's face it, because we're going to talk about this when we get to one of your guys from the draft, Jalen Tyson, when we get down there. The Cavs don't have a ton on the wing right now. That is very much a spot in transition. And Imani Bates could be a guy who could play himself into, a big wing spot. Because I could see there's a world where you could tell me, hey, he kind of comes in as a backup wing, third forward type in the mix in that way. And I could definitely see that. All right. We're going to go into Pete Nance now. Two-way guy with the Cavs a year ago. He's an unrestricted free agent right now. I'll say this with Pete Nance. He kind of is what he is, I think. He's a solid big, can space the floor, plays pretty good defense. He's like a poor man's version of his brother in a lot of ways. I don't know that he's maybe as athletic as Larry Nance Jr. is now after some of the injuries have robbed him of some of his athleticism. But peak Larry Nance Jr. he was more like his dad, where he was like going up and catching alley-oops and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But yeah, I think Pete Nance is a guy who can play. My guess is, again, probably back in the G League for the Cavs, maybe back on a two-way. They haven't filled any of their two-way spots as of yet.
Yeah, that's what I mean. My big thing here has to be a big that spaces the floor, and those are extremely valuable. So if he's able to show that consistently, along with grabbing rebounds, maybe it's being an incredible offensive rebounder or really figure out something defensively to provide value there. But I love bigs that can space the floor. That's what I was a big Quentin Post guy, me and you both, right? BC stand up.
There it is.
I'm intrigued, but you kind of have to see it play out, and we'll see. But he has to be able to knock down shots.
Yeah, Craig Porter Jr. I don't want to spend a lot of time on him. He didn't play that much in Las Vegas. I was kind of confused why he was even there at all. Like he's a rostered guy. He played regular backup guard minutes for the Cavs last year. I think ideally in an ideal world, he's more of a third point guard for you. But he's tough. He knows what he's doing out there. The Summer League's not a great environment for him unless he's going to be really like, all right, I'm going to dominate every possession and everything's going to run through me. Otherwise, you're just not going to see the kind of things he can do out there very often. I think it was weird to me that he even played. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on him unless you have something that jumped out where you're like, holy cow, like I didn't see this out of him and now I did.
No, I mean, he's interesting to me. I think I'm with you. Probably best as your third point guard. But I think if Craig Porter Jr. is your third point guard, you feel really good about that as an NBA team. pest defensively, attacks the paint. My thing, all I wrote here was he got his NBA chance, and I wonder if teams like what it like. Is Cleveland happy with him? Do they think what we think? Do other teams think what we think? That was really my only thing there, but that doesn't really have anything to do with summer league. It's just he's an interesting player for me to track this upcoming season, the minutes and what happens with him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So now let's go to Luke Travers because this guy is pretty interesting to me. One of the things with Travers is he's probably someone, if you've watched like Alex Sarr highlights or you went and watched any AJ Johnson highlights, you might have seen Luke Travers show up at times as an opponent or a teammate of various guys that came through the NBL because he's been in the NBL for the last few years since the Cavaliers drafted him. He is kind of one of those. It's funny because it's such a cheap comparison because he's a fellow Australian, but he reminds me a lot of like a much younger Joe Ingles, where he just kind of does a little bit of everything. No, you need me to rebound? Cool. You need me to get a stop? Great. You need me to make a pass? Okay. I can shoot it a little bit. I can do a lot of different stuff here. He's kind of got that like big rangy guard forward skill. Australia's done really well with, I think, creating good all-around players in their development system where it is, hey, it doesn't matter that you're 6'8". We're not just going to put you down on the block and tell you to go to work. Step out, handle the ball, pass, dribble, shoot, do all the things that you need to do to be successful at the next level. My big thing is starting to wonder is, like, is he ever coming over? Because now we're kind of on the tipping point of like, all right, is this going to happen or not? Because every once in a while, a guy comes over 6-7 years in. Ingles, again, a good example of that. But Cavs fans have been like waiting. I've had Cavs fans tell me, man, I stayed up because I wanted to watch the game. So I was up at, a ridiculous hour to watch him play. And I think, he could really help us. He could help us right now and all that sort of stuff that, fans get super excited about with their own guys. But I like Luke Travers. I just kind of don't know what's ever going to happen here.
Yeah, he is just 22 years old. He's played multiple years with Perth over there. This last year, he played with Melbourne. He shot, over 50% from the field the last 2 seasons in the NBL, which is impressive. My notes from Summer League, some really nice drives, tough reverse finishes. I liked what he was able to do there. Another guy where I'm like, okay, what is the jumper? Can he really space the floor? 2 years ago with Perth, he shot 37%. This last year, 33%. Did not make shots in Summer League. I think it's a high release, but a little bit slow, but he rebounds a little bit. He can pass a little bit. So sometimes these guys are hard, Keith, in terms of I like the overall skill and talent, but what's the superpower? What's the elite skill with a player like that? And sometimes you can get away with it if you're just good at everything. But if you don't have that one thing to hang your hat on, does a team really have the ability to find, okay, this is where he fits in. This is how he helps our team win.
Yeah, I will say this too. What I like with NBL players or even some of the Americans that have gone and played there for a year, you're at least playing against physical men. Like they play a physical brand of basketball in a lot of ways, a lot more similar to the NBA than some of the like European leagues are, just with the way that there's a lot of, we're going to bang, we're going to hold, we're going to push. They've adopted the whole, I hate it in the NBA. I don't know who started this, and it's like a pox on it. And I'm kind of afraid it might have been Marcus Smart, where the smalls come up, and as they're coming up they're coming up as the second guy, they just shove the screener. And it's like, what is this? And now I notice they do that in Australia. You need somebody who, at least with that part of it, you see he comes through and he can hold up to that physicality where some other guys you kind of, all right, are they going to be ready to go? In that respect. All right, I want to spend some time on Jalen Tyson because I know he was one of your guys.
Yeah.
Holy cow, was he awesome in Summer League. Now, this is a great example of, I don't want to go crazy. I'm not buying a Jalen Tyson jersey. I'm not moving to Cleveland to support him. But he was one of my favorite players of everybody who played in Summer League because he came in and, man, he went 100 miles an hour all week long, played really hard. And when I say 100 miles an hour, sometimes that is not a good thing, right? Because it's like, whoa, you're out of control. But he was just going hard, shot it really well. But what jumped off the page for me in a way I didn't see it all on any of his draft film other than the occasional flash, he was a consistently good passer and playmaker in Las Vegas. That really was something that got me excited because if you're going to be a wing in Cleveland with the way they're set up right now, you better be able to move the ball because otherwise, if you're letting it fly every time you touch it and your name's not Max Strus, it's probably a problem, right? You're probably not going to play very much.
Yeah, I thought Tyson got a little bit of a rap because he turned the ball over quite a bit at California, but I think he was trying to do so much for that
Yes.
team. It wasn't necessarily the most talented team. He was playing a lot. He was one of those guys, it was hard to project the archetype and the role because he was playing a lot on the ball at California, and we knew that wasn't going to be his role in the NBA. It's the Dylan Jones thing from Weber State. There's other guys that have had to do this, and it's like, okay, well, what does this look like off the ball? So then it became a question of, well, how well does he shoot it? He shot it well at Summer League. That obviously helps. It was also, does he defend? I give those type of guys a little bit of slack because he was taking so much offensive usage, Keith. I don't know how much energy he had left
Yeah.
to be good on the defensive end. What I did know is I thought he had great feel for the game. I thought he was physically built well, upper and lower body, to take contact, play through contact. I bought the jumper enough to believe in it. He finished inside the three-point line well at Summer League. He passed. I think he can cut, offensive rebound. He was a guy I really believed in. And listen, I will not take any sort of like, hey, I got it right off of 5 games from Summer League or how many ever it was. But I feel pretty good about how he looked.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I thought too, a couple more quick things. He had a couple plays. It was in one of the early games. I wish I could remember. I should have wrote it down. But he drove baseline, took the contact, hung, and finished.
Yeah.
And that's huge because that's something to me. That's an NBA move, right? That's the one where the guys on the bench all get up and they get excited because they're like, "Oh, that's a grown man finish right there, right?" Like that's it. Like that's a big one. And a couple nice dunks, one off of 2 feet, just off a catch in the dunker spot, one up off 2 feet and threw it down. Another one where he drove down the lane. It was kind of, you see this a lot in Summer League where guys are like, hey, I'm playing for a contract. I'm not taking a charge. I'm out of here. And like, it's like he was like a freight train coming downhill. There's a little, I'm going to make, again, I love a cheap comparison if I can make it. There's a little bit of Jaylen Brown in his game as far as early Jaylen Brown, where it is like, oh, there's times when he's like, I'm going to the basket. I might run into a charge here, but I'm going in, and you'll think about it the next time. And there's a little bit of that in there. Jalen's obviously rounded out his game so well. We'll see if this Jalen can do that or not. But yeah, I was excited for him. All right, you ready to go to your team? Not your team, but your team that you cover.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the more common mistakes, right? People think you're this massive Pistons fan.
I don't mind it. It's just like sometimes my students are the worst. They'll come in after the Pistons have lost 28 straight games and like, oh, are you so mad today? And I'm like, no, I don't care. I do the podcast. I hate to say it, I get paid to do the podcast, whether they win or lose. Like, honestly, them losing 28 games was great for content because people wanted to come in and listen about it. So I'm not necessarily a fan. It's just the team that I cover, and I am truly blessed. It got me my start in this. But
yeah, I think for you, like, it's kind of like me with the Magic here, where I'll do some Magic work. I want them to do well because I want
100%.
the people here to do well. I want the people I interact with to do well. And I'm sure, you've obviously got a big following in the Pistons community now. So you want those people to be happy. So let's start off with the guy who's probably of this group got the best chance to make them happy, Ron Holland. I thought there were some really good signs with him. He's more than NBA ready as an athlete.
Yeah.
I think the year in the G League playing against professionals really helped him build his body out. I have no concerns about any of that stuff. That's all going to be fine. It's broken record time. Is he going to shoot? That is a carryover concern, much like with Modest Buzelis. That's a carryover concern from the G League Ignite season that he had. Did not shoot it well there either. So that's going to be something we'll continue to watch because the Pistons don't need any more really good athletes that can't shoot. They've got those, right? So that's going to be something we'll be watching for him here. And that may be something that keeps him from making an NBA impact right away. He may be more of a February, March, April guy than he is a, October, November, December kind of guy who's making an impact there. So we'll see with that one. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of monitor his growth. I thought he showed really good basketball IQ too. I thought you could see he played a year of professional basketball. And I thought that was really important to get that idea of, all right, we could kind of see him. He knows where to move, knows how to space, knows how to stay rooted to a spot when he should. I thought those were all things that stood out really well for him.
Yeah, he struggled around the rim at times. So there was
Yeah.
some where, like what you talked about with Tyson, where he took verticality contests and kind of hung in the air and then finished. He had two of those in one game. And then other games he would get blocked. He wouldn't be able to find the right touch, anything. He actually looks a little better from 6 to 8 feet, where it was just straight touch on his shot. My thing with Ron Holland's jumper is I don't think it looks completely broke. Like if I
No.
had to guess between him and Asar, and I think Asar may have shot a better percentage out of OTE, but hold on. Sorry, my kid, I recorded
Oh,
my
good.
youngest son's room, and so he walks in whenever he wants. I would guess that Ron shoots it better earlier in his career. I don't know how long that's going to take. The one thing I do like about Ron is that he won't have to come in and play right away like some of these other Pistons rookie had. Like they've built this roster out a little bit. He can come off the bench and figure things out and not play this crazy role.
All right, I'll pick it up while Bryce is dealing with that. Normally, it's us with dogs and cats and everything else. He's got actual humans that he's having to work with here. So yeah, with Holland, a couple other things I liked too. I thought he took some risks as a passer, but they were the right risks to make there. I thought he rebounded pretty well. That's always a plus for a
Yep.
wing if you can get in there and mix it up. And he got competitive rebounds, which is not just, oh, I got the ones that fell to me. Like I thought he did a good job going and getting the ball, which was exciting. So now I want to go to
Real quick, just one
oh yeah,
turnover
go
per
ahead.
game for Ron. Just one turnover per game for
Yeah.
Ron Holland with the amount of usages he had. I thought that was impressive. Just to piggyback off what you said.
No, that's a great point, especially coming off a year with the G League Ignite. Again, you mentioned this when you go look at the G League Ignite stats, you're probably like, how did any of these guys get drafted? It was a mess. That was like one where it's like, all right, they pulled the plug on this program on the exact right year because nothing good really. No, I shouldn't say that. Not that nothing good came out of this year because a lot of those guys adjusted to pro ball and that part of it was good. But man, that G League Ignite program was a disaster this year. So I'm going to apologize too because I should know this. Is it Danis? Is that how you say it?
Dennis. Yep, Dennis.
Danis, yeah, that's what I thought. Danis Jenkins, two-way guy for the Pistons. Not somebody I knew much about coming into
Same.
summer league. When it
Same, to
popped
be honest.
that he was getting a two-way, I was a little like, okay, I guess I gotta go learn about this. I came away kind of impressed. I liked how physical he was, how competitive he is. He's a kind of reminded me a little bit of like Jayshawn Tate, where he's not super big, but like he's gonna play a little bit bigger. He's gonna
Sure.
get super physical into guys. I thought they did a smart thing. It felt like it took a game and a half or so. Then it was like, let's put him on the ball and see what he can do because off ball he was kind of wasted. I don't think he's going to ever shoot it really well. Looking at his profile and then what he looked like here in summer league, but I thought he did a nice job as a playmaker. Worthy two-way guy to get a look at and see what it looks like moving forward.
Yeah, no, he really took Pistons fans by surprise. And I'm the same as you. I wasn't super familiar with his game. And I'll tell you one thing, if you like to watch a guard navigate ball screens, Danis Jenkins does a really good job of that.
Yeah.
He finds a way to navigate and work his body around those screens. Does a really good job there. I thought he did a good job getting into the paint, finding shooters, cutters, those type of things. And then he was sneaky good rim protector. He'd have a blocky game that you're like, hold on, where did that come from? And it was like one of them was like straight verticality. It wasn't like surprise the guy from behind. So yeah, Danis Jenkins really, I think he did well for himself. Shot it okay at times, and then other times a little more streaky. That was kind of a struggle he's going to have. But as you mentioned, worthy two-way player. At the very least, here is a point guard or a guard that can go run the Motor City Cruise. He can go run your G League team, and he's going to do a good job of getting Bobby Klintman shots and Ron Holland shots if he plays down there at all, or whoever it is. And I think that's very valuable for an overall organization.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'll say one other quick thing. I think it was against Cam Whitmore. He came up to set a screen, and Klintman had you could see he was like trying to snake the screens a little bit and get around them to stay with his man. He just went right through him. And yet, like Cam Whitmore, I could tell was like, oh, I love it. Like, let's go. And when we get to the Rockets, we'll talk about him because Cam Whitmore could have played 5 minutes and was like, all right, go home. this is no value for you. But anyway, I liked with Jenkins, like he wasn't afraid to put the shoulder into a guy
Yeah.
and say, all right, I'm going to go through you on this screen and I'm going to make you work here. All right. So going back to the Pistons though, you mentioned Clintman. Great. I thought this was an outstanding summer league from him. I don't know that you could have wanted more, except maybe more shots, like get more shots up. But looked pretty good. I'm excited now to really watching him at Wake Forest and then seeing him in Australia. There was a little bit there where I was kind of like, you know what? He kind of reminds me a little bit of Tobias Harris in a way, like moves similarly sized guy. And everybody's made a million Tobias Harris jokes and why'd they sign him and all that other stuff, but not a bad guy for him to apprentice under, for a year or 2 years, however long Harris is with the Pistons, if whether it's the life of that contract. I think Clintman can play, and I think he's going to be one of those guys we're going to come back around at some point and be like, all right, maybe shouldn't have been a first rounder, but probably shouldn't have fallen this far either. Like he just can play.
Yeah, even before Summer League, obviously, he finished as one of my into the first, top of the second round. That's the tier he ended up on my board, right around 30. I thought he was a good player. He's a guy I've liked all the way back to Wake Forest, where he finished his freshman season really strong, especially shooting it from three. One thing that the Pistons, whether they prioritize it or not, I don't know. But one thing Trajan Langdon got in Ron Holland and Bobby Clintman were two really good off the ball cutters and movers. Now, the best one in the 2024 class plays for your Orlando Magic, and that's Tristan da Silva. He's incredible. And by the way, he had an awesome summer league as well. Sure, I'm kind of jealous we don't get to talk about the Magic because
we'll get there.
Anthony Black was awesome as also, and Jet made shots. But Clintman cuts off the ball, offensive rebounds. If he makes shots, he's a very valuable offensive player. Because you know what else he did really well? He passed the ball.
Yes.
Way better than what I thought. I did not know that his passing chops would be that good. Doesn't dribble it all that well, doesn't finish at the rim that great for his size. Defensively, there's some things, especially off the ball, kept giving up backdoor cuts to Pacum Dadier with the Knicks. But I thought it was an overall good summer league for Bobby Clintman.
Yeah, the defense that's gonna have to get fixed. Otherwise, he's just not gonna play. Yeah. Especially with JB Bickerstaff, he's not gonna play. If you can't defend, you're not gonna be out there very much. I thought he had a couple nice plays too, because he started knocking down his 3-point shots pretty early on, and then teams reacted, right? And guys were closing to him hard. I thought he did a nice job of 1-2 dribbles. And initially it was 1-2 dribbles, find my next shot. But then it was, okay, now the help defenders come, and then he find the cutter or find the shooter or whatever it was. And that's good stuff to see, because sometimes that takes 3 years into a guy's career before they're able to even drive a closeout for a couple dribbles and make the next play. And I thought that was good. Now, it's summer league, so the rotations aren't as quick. They're not as fast. Guys aren't as long. They're not as athletic. But it's the processing of, all right, I see what I should do here. And then, finishing in that way. I was excited about that. Wendell Moore Jr., I didn't even understand why.
Yeah.
Like, barely played. I didn't get it. Like, so that's kind of, we'll leave it there. There's nothing really to analyze. Didn't play enough. Or was barely out there. And maybe it was just, all right, we're going to get a look. And if he sets the world on fire, we'll go. But he didn't. And here we are. Marcus Sasser, I kind of, my thing with Marcus Sasser was coming into the league a year ago. I was like, is he going to shoot? Then he shot it pretty well as a rookie, I thought. Summer league, I'm not going to now go back on that because it was summer league, but it was like, oh man, this was a little messier. And part of what I thought got messy for him was when he got moved off the ball and he was playing off ball. And if he's going to play for Detroit, he's probably going to have to play off ball some. And that's something that I worry about at least a little bit with him is he going to be a shooter when he can get into his own shot? Or is he going to be able to knock him down when he can't? And if he can't knock him down when others are creating the looks for him, that's probably going to be a problem. And I kind of was at a point where I was like, is he going to, like, are him and Jaden Ivey going to end up battling for minutes with each other? And now I'm kind of back to where I'm like, all right, it's probably Jaden Ivey who gets the first, hopefully, unlike under Monty Williams, gets the first crack at minutes, but we'll see. But yeah, Marcus Sasser, I just expected more as a former first-round pick in his second summer league. I wanted to see him do more. What I will say is, did get to the free throw line pretty well, and he's he's really smart. He knows what to do. What to break down a defense, how to get himself fouled. Defense was there. That's like a Houston guard thing, right? Is they're going to defend. Jamal Shed is already a terror on that end. But there is I wanted to see more out of him.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think you said it perfectly in terms of I think he's an off the ball offensive player, but I think right now he's most comfortable creating a shot for himself. I think he would rather shoot a step back three where he created separation than he would off a catch and shoot or even off of movement. And that's honestly, I would say most people would say he had a successful rookie season for the Pistons last year based off where he was picked and all of that. But it's been my biggest qualm with Marcus Sasser. And I love Marcus Sasser. He came on our podcast and talked with us. Like, I love him as a person and I appreciated that so much. But I think that's what his role is, because he's not a creator. I think people will go, well, at his size, shouldn't he be on the ball? Well, that's not really what he does. He doesn't create for others. And so he's either going to be this second unit on ball, just, flamethrower that comes in and just gets buckets, which I don't know that he's quite good enough to do that. Or my hope is he will learn to play off of, I would love the idea of subbing him in 6 minutes into the game for a Jaden Ivey. Let Jaden run the second unit 6 minutes and let him play off of Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
And then he can take the primary smaller defensive matchup, but he's spacing the floor for a Cade Cunningham being a secondary creator. It just doesn't seem like that's what he's most comfortable with right now.
Yeah, and that's not to say it won't happen, right? I mean, maybe it will. And part of, I think, again, Summer League is, let's put these guys into these are no risk environments. If you don't look good, it doesn't really matter to anyone but you. But for the team, it is, let's find out. And I thought when they made that change to, we're going to put Jenkins on the ball more, we're going to put you off the ball, it just got you could see, to your point, he's just not as comfortable with it. So something to monitor going forward. We'll keep an eye on it. All right, we're going to move to the Indiana Pacers. Kendall Brown, kind of a second year guy here. He missed this whole rookie year. He got hurt, and then played this past year. There were times when Kendall Brown looked really good, had a couple of those strong drives, but then I went back and looked because I was like, I remember him having some really good, strong plays. And I was like, okay, it's against guys who aren't NBA players. When he was guarded by an NBA guy, he just couldn't get by him. And I don't know if the injuries have just sapped him of, the quickness that he needed to have. He was somebody I know a lot of people were super high on in the pre-draft process, but he just looks kind of okay. He's one of those ones where I'm like, kind of don't really know why he's on a standard contract and not still on a two-way, but it's not going to hurt you at all. It's fine in the end. Pacers, Andrew Nemhard contract got signed. Well, I'll do another show where I do all news and all that catch up stuff later. But for now, we're doing summer league prospects. Kendall Brown, just kind of okay.
Yeah, he had some ball handling drive stuff, wasn't able to convert off of most of it. I don't know what ultimately his role is going to be. Real quick, I want to give Tolu Smith some love for the Pistons. That's a big guy who I think he should be on their G League roster as a big man. So just wanted real quick with Tolu Smith. I could hear the Pistons fans screaming at me that we didn't talk about him. So real quick, not to take away from the Pacers, from Kendall Brown, from the next guy we're going to talk about, but just wanted to give Tolu a little bit of love there.
No, I love it because that's those are the guys, right, where I did not watch every minute of every Pistons game like you did. So those are the guys that sometimes don't pop, especially if you're watching the cut up games, correct, right, where you're just trying to catch guys individually. Sometimes players don't pop, or every once in a while they do. Like I know, at least when I'm watching like cut up plays, if I see like the same guy is like, man, that dude's like challenged like 5 shots in a row, then I make a note and I'm like, go watch him. Like, what is happening there?
Yep.
Kind of with that. So yeah. All right. So let's go to Enrique Freeman. This guy was just fought his way on the draft boards. In the end, he's somebody, I had someone describe it as me, like he battled his way into the draft by just showing up and doing everything you need him to do. My big thing with Enrique Freeman is about 6'7". That maybe feels even a little generous. Maybe plays like he's like 7 feet tall because he plays really hard. He's really in there. He's tough to move. He's really physical, but he's just not big enough to challenge the best shooters, rebound over the biggest guys. That's going to be a problem. If he can't step out and shoot it, he's going to join the long list of tweener forward size guys that just they don't have it. But when it takes to go into the next level, like if you're going to be that size, you need to be like Montrezl Harrell or even Isaiah Stewart, where it's like you have to go really, really hard all the time. I have no doubt he's going to go really hard, but those guys are also super athletes. I don't know about it, but my guess is two-way contract probably coming for him. Probably spend the year developing in the G League. Not the end of the world, but he's somebody where lock yourself in the gym, man. Take a million jump shots the rest of the summer, all G League season, and just that's where we got to get to.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention. So he's out of Akron for anybody who doesn't know, and the intel on this kid is insane. Like that's all people kept telling me is how good the intel was in terms of who he was. He averaged almost 13 rebounds a game this past season. He did uptick his three-point attempts up to 54 after only shooting 6 the previous 4 seasons of his career and made it at 37. Free throw percentage isn't great. Also of note with Enrique, he'll turn 24 already here in 5 days. So he is a little bit on the older side. I'm not trying to like make a big deal about it as a rookie, but I mean, that just shows you the variance in these rookies when you're talking about someone that's about to turn 24 and some other guys who are still literally 18 until August. I think it's a couple of them, but he's long, aggressive on the boards. He had an intriguing switch possession defensively where he had to flip his hips multiple times, but nail on the head. He's got to be able to knock down shots from the perimeter.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing for him. Now, Johnny Furphy shot terribly in Las Vegas. I mean, couldn't make anything, but there's enough film tape history of him where I believe he will shoot. I thought what was good was he was the athlete he was talked about going into the pre-draft. I thought he ran the floor really well. That's obviously very important right now with the way the Pacers are built. You need to get out and fill the lanes. And if he does that, like you're already ahead of the game, with a lot of stuff. I thought he rebounded pretty well. I thought he was competitive defensively in a better way than maybe I expected him to be. Maybe I'm, using the white wing stereotype there of he's just going to be food for defenders. But
he wasn't good in college. He wasn't good defensively.
But I thought he was okay. I thought he held up okay and at least tried, which is going to be really important. Now, one thing we should note is sometimes guys hustle and try really hard because they're trying to show up for people in summer league, and sometimes it's, well, I know I can guard this guy. I know I can stay in front of him, so I'll make it look good. And then against the better players, it's just not there. But overall, little up and down again. Probably going to see a lot of time in the G League would be my guess, even though he's on a standard contract. But just that Pacers team's pretty deep in wings. They don't really need him right now, so just go develop in the G League.
Yeah, and he's a younger player. He was a little bit of a late bloomer, and so I think that's going to be okay. But to your point, the athleticism popped, and that's really what's important for him. I thought he landed in a good spot in Indiana in terms of the pace they play with, the transition. That's where he's going to be best at early in his career. He does have to figure out the jumper. Like it went up and down at times. And so he's got to be able to be consistent with that, but good cutter, mentioned the transition, offensive rebounds, and then really figure out the defense. I think even at Kansas, you would watch and you could see he was engaged, but he was a step late, or he's standing straight up, or he couldn't drop his hips on the ball. He just has to figure a lot of those things out.
Yeah, I think because of Dickinson, some of those guys get super lazy on defense because like, well, he'll just clean it up.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't. That's not okay. All right, we're gonna move to Quentin Jackson, two-way guy with the Pacers last year. He's been around the league for a couple years now. He was awesome. He made like all of his shots, hit his jump shots, finished inside, did a nice job as a playmaker. I think kind of again, this is a guy been around a little bit. You could see he knows what he's doing here. It's easy to see why the Pacers, they've held his restricted rights. They kept him there. Probably going to be back on a two-way is my guess. Or Indiana's in a spot where I'm going to say this about probably at least 3 more guys might be on a two-way. Well, you can only have 3 of them. So if we're already at like 4 or 5, this might be one where, all right, let's see what shakes out here over the next month. And maybe we bring him in on a standard deal. Quentin Jackson's an NBA level guy. For me, the big thing, my question was, it felt like year one was teams trying to force him into being this big point guard, and I didn't necessarily see it. Year 2 with the Pacers, and then in this year in Summer League, I can kind of see it now. It's growing on me. I can kind of see where this could be going.
Yeah, he's one of those shot 46% on 2 attempts from 3, but then you look at the overall like career shooting profile, and that's a little bit of an outlier, right? Like he hasn't
Sure.
shot that good. And so this is one of those where, okay, this would be great if this was who he was, but was this just a 5-game stretch where he felt, and it's, not even on that many attempts, 11 attempts or something like that. So he made 5 in 5 games. But a rim pressure guy, thought he showed off some athleticism. He had a transition dunk. You could really see the vertical pop. He was active defensively and disruptive, especially in the second of the games I watched. I will say on the jumper, it was like a long wind up. It took him, like he caught it here, brought it all the way down, then all the way back up. But yes, I beyond that, I thought he looked good in Summer League.
I'll say this on a weird shooting motion. I'm curious to get your thoughts. I don't care if a guy has a weird motion, if it's repeatable, and obviously if it
Sure.
goes in.
Yeah.
Like if it goes in, I don't really care what it looks like as long as it's going in. Like the guy, my archetype for that is Kevin Martin. Kevin
Sure.
Martin had a way you would never teach a kid to shoot the way Kevin Martin does. It was the most extreme slingshot, weird thing that I've ever seen since my buddy Kenny back in grade school shot that way. But Kevin Martin made his. Kenny didn't always make his shots, but it was man, he really could shoot it. And that's where, yeah, so with Jackson, but I get it sometimes because there is times too, like that was the problem with the balls when they came in, right? LaMelo and Lonzo. It was going to be, can you even get it off? Like
That's the thing.
That becomes the challenge. So it's got to be repeatable. You have to be able to get it off, and it needs to go in. Otherwise, let's break this down and improve your shot.
So that was my thing. It wasn't as much that it was kind of funny looking. It's like how far he had to bring it down and how long it took him to get it off. This was the Tyrese Halliburton thing. If you've ever watch him in the 3-point competition, you can see what he does with his shooting hand and how it takes him forever to actually get the hand behind the ball. People weren't necessarily worried about his catch and shoot coming out of college. They didn't think he'd be able to shoot off the dribble because of that. Like that was the big concern. And so, and like when you watch Tyrese Halliburton shoot, I'm like, okay, I get why people really had questions here. This is very funky looking and it makes it hard to buy into, but you're right. I mean, we've learned with this is where the eye test and analytics meet and have to balance off of each other. If the guy makes shots, unless there's some flaw in terms of how long it takes or something like that, or the other thing, Keith, is moving that shooting form 3 feet further from the basket.
Yes.
Some shooting forms are harder to do that than others are.
And some are not repeatable off the dribble.
Correct.
Only repeatable as a standstill guy or a catch and shoot guy and those sort of things. All right, moving on because the Pacers had a lot of dudes.
They did
this summer. Tristan Newton, man, every Tristan Newton missed jump shot in there was a lot of them. It was like a little dagger to my heart. This guy was one of the guys. So when I start my draft prep, I kind of start at the top because I don't know how deep I'm going to get into a class. So it's like, all right, well, if I watch UConn, I'm going to see like 12 guys. So this is great. And I fell in love with Tristan Newton first time I ever saw him play. I was like, this guy just knows how to play. Like he can run a team. On a team loaded with talent 2 years in a row, he was the one who was like, no, you go here. Like he just had complete control of all those guys. And whether it was the highly touted young players or the other veteran guys, they all just listened and they knew, and did what he asked them to do. That was there in Summer League. He's going to be we talked about this on the draft recap show, how good he's going to be for their G League team. Because especially if they're like, hey, we need to replicate how the big Pacers play, he's going to be able to do that because he'll get out, he'll push it, he'll make the right reads, he'll do all those things. It just was like, dude, could you please make a single jump shot? Like it was brutal. Like the numbers like are scary. 20% overall, 18.2% on from 3. He did get himself to the line quite a bit and he hit 89% there. So I don't think the shot is broken, but I don't know what was going on. That's going to be one where it's probably going to, I imagine him and shooting coaches will be locked in watching the tape, trying to figure out, and then let's get this fixed in the gym.
This one will be really interesting. This will be a fascinating player to watch in terms of the eye test versus the numbers because I told you, even we talked a little bit about him before we started recording. He made a ton of big shots at Connecticut, but career, Keith, 33% from 3 on over 650 attempts. So this is a major sample size for him in college. But then the counter to that is on 700 plus free throw attempts, he was 83%. but then from the field overall, 40% on 1,500 attempts. So I have no idea. I have no idea whether he can shoot or not. And so this will be a fascinating one because a lot of scouts will tell you, hey, for NBA 3-point shooting, focus on the free throw percentage. The free throw percentage is actually the better indicator. We'll find out with Tristan Newton.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to Ben Shepherd. We're going to keep this one super quick. Did not play a ton. Really didn't need to play at all, I don't think. He is a guy who he had been kind of popped in summer league a year ago, then looked okay early in the season. And as the year went along, just started playing more. Pacers had some injuries on the wing, and next thing you know, he's playing in every playoff game and playing key minutes. He shot awful in Las Vegas. I don't care. This guy made shots in actual games and in the NBA playoffs. That I don't need to see him do anything.
Yeah, I don't think he's made for this episode. I have more notes from my playoff watches last year than I do summer league on Ben Shepherd. So I think he's up for a different episode.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to Oscar Tshiebwe. Oscar Tshiebwe is more than maybe any player that I watched in summer league. I know exactly what he is. This dude might, if he could play enough in the NBA, he might win the NBA rebounding title.
Sure.
He is unbelievable on the glass. Just his timing is impeccable. His I'm going to get it factor is unbelievable. He's going to go get it. He's really good at tipping rebounds away from more athletic guys. And then if you don't come in with serious intent on either blocking him out or trying to get by him, you don't have a chance because he'll turn. And he has that kind of skill. It's like the old school centers I watched where it's like, oh, you think you're flying in on a corner crash? I'm just going to turn my big old booty into you and send you into the cameraman on the baseline. And I get the rebound and off we go the other way. Finish is really good around the rim, but dude range is measured in inches, not feet. If it's not a dunk or right around the restricted area, it's not going to happen with him. Defensively, he's a step slow. Guards can get him. If they get him isolated out top, it's over for him. So it's just hard because it's one of those where it's man, I know what you can be. It's just going to be, are you going to be able to do enough of the other stuff better? Or are you going to be kind of who it reminds me of a little bit is Neemias Queta, where it is Neemias Queta's skill initially was just go get the ball. And people are like, this guy's offensive rebounding is incredible. It's yeah, but he's rebounding 7 of his own misses every game. What are we doing? Now it's okay, now he's starting to finish a little bit better. And he's now still, tracking and going and getting the ball. Kate is just a far better athlete than Tshiebwe is. But man, I want to like him because he's just, it just sometimes when it's I know what you can do. I want to find a spot for you. I just don't know if he's going to make it.
Keith, do you know how many rebounds he averaged in 33 G League games last year? Total rebounds.
A ton.
16.
Yeah.
And 6.1 offensive. Those are insane numbers.
Yeah.
It's hard not to think that could translate in some sort of valuable way to an NBA team. If he could just be a good passer offensively or short roll floater or something offensively, I feel like a team could find a role for him, but he's got to find that. He has to be able to.
I will close with this. The Pacers brought in James Wiseman to kind of be their new Jalen Smith, where was former high draft pick, didn't really pan out in the first spot. Let's see what it looks like. There's going to be moments, I guarantee you, in training camp, and I'll be curious to talk to Pacers people because we won't see them, where Tshiebwe is just beating the ever-living crap out of James Wiseman.
Sure.
And it may be one of those, this may be one of those where, hey, a couple guys threw hands today at Pacers camp because that's, I think, part of why he's there. Again, another guy. They kept his restricted rights, so he's probably going to be back on a two-way, if not on the regular roster. If Wiseman doesn't pop, they're pretty thin up front. Yeah. It's Miles Turner and Isaiah Jackson and not much else. So why they need Wiseman to pop. And I still believe in Wiseman. As you said, that's a whole other show. But I think Tshiebwe has a chance of kind of being something. So let's see. We'll go with that. All right, last Pacer. Then we get a whole bunch of Bucks to get through, and then we'll be done. Jarris Walker, man, he was terrific. Did everything that he's did last year, everything he did in college. I don't know what it's going to take for him. It's probably going to have to be can really defend wings and can make jumpers. because he should be in like a playmaking 4 spot. It would be like he could be Pascal Siakam, I think, with a similar type skill set of get it and go, find the right reads, make the right passes, and all that stuff. But it's not going to happen with Siakam and Toppin, who both got paid this summer, are both back. And neither one is really probably going to play very much at the 5, allowing them to play together. So I'm not sure how Jarris Walker breaks through, but he was great out there in summer league. And this would be my last run for him in summer league. He's nothing left to prove in this environment. He's that good.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying $56 million this year almost to two foremen already in Siakam and Toppin. And so I don't know where Walker's minutes come unless they all of a sudden try to play him at the 3, which I think that would be more about, okay, is the shooting really going to hold and can he defend at that spot? I think I think sometimes we get a little bit confused of primary matchups and switchability and what guys are able to do. I don't know if you want Jarris Walker just matching up with guys. Can he switch on guys and hold up? Sure. Maybe he can. Maybe he'll be able to take on, like, I think he can guard bigger wings for sure. Can he guard smaller wings and true guards? I don't know that yet. Maybe he can, but he's very intriguing. I find it hard that Indiana won't find some minutes for him. I just don't know where they're going to come from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what's hard to figure out.
Yeah. Pacers are, I know I said they don't have a ton at the center spot, but really what you're going into regular season, if you're too deep at each spot, you've got a pretty loaded rotation. The Pacers are at least too deep at every spot. Yeah. So that's going to be the hard part. He's going to need an injury, or maybe he just is better than somebody else and it pushes his way through there. I thought it was good. They clearly wanted to see him shoot a lot of threes and see if he could get to the free throw line. He did both at summer league, which was intriguing. All right. The Bucks. Now I said there's a lot of Bucks. The good news, Bryce, we can get through the first few fairly quickly because like Marjon Beauchamp, everything's there physically for him. He looks good in this environment at times because he's just bigger, longer, quicker than a lot of guys trying to guard him. But then he gets into his jump shot. It's gross. It doesn't go in. The form is messy. It's never the same shot twice in a row. And we're now 3 years in here. Like, we should be seeing more out of him as far as a completely and utterly dominant player. I'm starting to really wonder if the Bucks are not just going to decline that 4th year rookie scale team option and say, hey, we tried. We've got a whole bunch of other dudes that are at similar positions, and we're going to move on. I think the days of hoping they can make him into a really big playmaking point guard, I think those are gone. I think now your hope is maybe we can make him into an athletic defensive wing, but even that I'm starting to wonder about.
Yeah, I wasn't overly impressed. He did in one of the games I watched, the third quarter, he really scored the ball well, made shots that you could see that. He did have some defensive disruption, just making plays, steals, jumping passing lanes, averaged almost 2 per game. His rebounding numbers actually really stand out as much as anything whenever you look at the numbers. But for a third-year guy, I will admit I was a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed, but expected a little bit more from Marjon Beauchamp.
Yeah. All right. Hugo Besson, first year at Summer League, looked like somebody's little brother wandered on the court and got out there because he didn't look even remotely physically ready for the size, speed, strength combination of NBA level athletes. This year he looked fine. He looked like he was going to hold up. I thought he looked good physically, but that was about it. That was the extent of it. Nothing else stood out. And I kind of am like, all right, this might be, if anything, I think you might see his name thrown in a 15 trades where his draft rights are getting traded around. I don't know that we ever see him in the NBA.
Yeah. I will one note defensively. I thought he really exaggerated his off-ball defensive help to like almost too much. He was giving up shots because of that. He can pass, he can tack off the bounce, pressure the paint a little bit, had some decent off-ball movement. Jumper didn't look broke, but he didn't make shots. Didn't get a ton of them up, but yeah, you said fine. That's kind of where I was. Fine.
Yeah. I don't have anything more to add on him. Jalen Galloway, when the news broke a little over a year ago, that he was, or I guess not a little over a year ago, probably 6 months ago or so, he was coming to the NBA. I had a ton of people tell me like, oh my God, this guy's going to be awesome. Like, this is going to be great. You'll love him when he gets there. Then he kind of didn't do too much. Then in Summer League, he barely played. Like, weird for a guy who's on a roster already as a two-way player. Maybe the Bucks just didn't want to put him out there. I don't know if there's an injury thing that I just missed. Again, sometimes when you're watching cuts of these guys, you're not getting the full story. I tried to look it up and see if there was anything. I could not find anything necessarily that there was an injury, so I don't know, but just didn't really play. So there's nothing really to analyze with him.
Yeah, my biggest thing was I was very intrigued before all of this whenever I was watching him, and he played in the NBL before, but yeah, nothing positive stood out in summer league. I'm a little unsure what's going on with Jalen Galloway.
Yeah, mystery box, right? All right, Andre Jackson Jr. I'm just gonna. There maybe is no player that played in summer league that just this environment sucks for them more than him. Like, he's just never going to show up there. It's kind of like when you get the guy out there in a really terrible pickup game that's like trying to set screens and he's trying to cut off ball, and like it's just a bunch of dudes with 100 dribbles and a step back jumper. It's like he's just completely lost and doesn't matter. Andre Jackson Jr. to me, super intriguing. I would love to see the Bucks give him real minutes and play him and actually, go with him for a real role. I don't know if Doc will or not. It's not that he's super young, but he's a young player in terms of NBA experience. But he defends, he rebounds, he's a really good passer. Again, if he shot it better, he'd probably be a starter. He probably would have been drafted in the first round. But just summer league's not the place for him to show up and do the good things that he does.
Yeah, he's one of those players I love. Like, I just love the way he plays, but I just have learned that it's really hard for those type of guys to be successful in the NBA. Like you said, could be a really impactful defender. Tried to take 2 charges in the first half of the game I watched. Hit a little floater on one in the offensively, obviously, like out of a short roll. Good passer. He was taking threes, but he just wasn't making them. The jumper doesn't even look super smooth or comfortable. And then I will say the more I watched, and he ended up, let me pull a little bit lower because he didn't score the ball very much. Yeah. 3 turnovers per game. Like, he can't be a mistake guy, Keith. That you can't be a non-shooter and be a guy that turns the ball over a lot whenever you're supposed to be a field. He took a 3-pointer with 9 seconds left in one of the quarters. I'm like, what do you like? You have to be the highest field guy on the floor that rarely makes a mistake to also be the non-shooter that he is. But the athleticism, the defense, all of that stuff is very intriguing still to me.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, AJ Johnson, one of the more surprising first-round picks as you talk to teams and as we evaluated the draft. Some people had him there. I think Sam was pretty high on him, if I remember. Yeah. Some others were had a second-round grade on him. This is probably it for him in a Bucks uniform. Probably see a lot of him in a Wisconsin Herd uniform in the next year because Doc's not going to play him, being one of the younger players, on the Bucks roster. But I liked what I saw from him, at least initially. I liked, physically he looks good. He understands the pro level spacing. That's, again, in Australia, NBL thing. It was good for him with that. Just going to be, he needs to learn how to defend, and then, say it with me. Is he going to shoot? Because that's going to be what really matters. But he's going to be with Wisconsin, with the Herd, quite a bit playing in the G League this year.
Yeah, I think it was very up and down, and that's kind of how or where I've been with AJ Johnson through the whole process. The first time I turned on his film, he stood out to me. Like, just the way he moves and the explosiveness he has and those type of things. I was like, man, this kid is very, very interesting. And so there were times of like, oh, I really like the process. He's taking the shots I want. He turns down this to shot fake and take this one. And then there were times like, okay, I don't like the process as much now, or that was a bad decision. So he's young. He's going to have to figure it out. Hopefully, what I worry more and more about the G League is it actually an environment for somebody like him to rein those things in, to force the good decisions and the quality decisions and the quality shots? Or is he going to go down there and play glorified pickup and it's just going to be, and is he not going to learn that process? To me, it's a lot about the process for AJ Johnson. And so it's a huge year of development for him with his G League team.
That's where, like, Miami with Sioux Falls, Memphis with the Memphis Grizzlies, with the Memphis Hustle, the teams that use the G League really well get a lot out of it. And that's why you're constantly seeing, man, why are those guys cranking out guys every year on their actual NBA roster? Well, that's why. It's because they do that. But you're absolutely right. You got to use that as an extension of your NBA team. It should be, I think of it as very much my approach. when I coached high school, and it came out of the high school program that I grew up in, was the JV is an extension of the varsity, in that we're going to run a lot of the same stuff because we want to see, can you do it? Because if you can do it at the JV level, then we'll give you a chance eventually to show you can do it at the varsity level. That's what I like to see sometimes. Now, other teams like Daryl Morey, when he ran the Rockets, used the Rio Grande Valley Vipers like a lab, where it was a lot of the stuff of, hey, we're going to take half of our shots as 3-pointers. That started in the G League, where he had games where he's like, I want a 75% 3-point rate tonight. Like, that's what we're going to do, because it's, again, there's no risk there. You lose the games and whatever. The players are competitive, coaches are competitive, but no one's going to remember that, right? So it's, some teams use it like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Where I want to see him play a little structured, right? Let's see what it looks like. Chris Livingston, what a surprise. What a pleasant surprise. He came into this summer league, and I wonder if he came in with like, my rookie year didn't go the way I really wanted it to. And I thought he played great. I thought he was physically overpowering at times with guys. I thought there were times when they put bigger players on him where he's like, all right, I'm going to turn, face, and I'm blowing by you and getting to where I want to go. Thought he did a nice job seeking out contact. I thought he made some nice passing reads at times. Jump shot looked pretty good. I was really excited about how much he got on the glass, because that was something that I was kind of wondering if that was going to be in him. I thought this was a really productive summer league for him.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the numbers across the board, and he led them in most things. He was, points, shot a good field goal percentage, maybe the best 3-point percentage or close to it, got to the free throw line a little bit, led the team in rebounding, all of it, even average a couple assists a game. So I thought physically, you mentioned that he has an NBA looking body, and I thought he looked good on both ends of the court. I don't know that he ever wowed me with anything where it's like, oh, that's an NBA level skill, or that was an NBA level move, whatever, but he just looked good. He looked solid. I'm interested to see, the thing with the Bucks is, you mentioned earlier with Doc playing young guys in general, and then they were able to fill out this roster with DeLon Wright, Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr. on minimums. I mean, it's great for the Bucks. I think they'll be better for it, obviously, but not great for their young guys getting chances this year. And, the Herd may be one of the better tickets in the G League with, I mean, how many of the guys we've talked about are going to play, Keith? I don't know that any of them are so far.
Yeah. Very, very few of them. Maybe Jackson.
Yeah.
Because if he defends enough, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. A guy who defends in the NBA, the coach will always find a way to get him on the floor. Yeah, but you're right. They're probably going to have a pretty good G League team. One of the guys who should be there, Ryan Rollins, he's a two-way guy for the Bucks. I thought he looked pretty good. I thought this was one of the more comfortable settings for him in his couple years in the NBA. I thought he did a nice job off the dribble, getting in a space for his shots. Again, picked out a couple good passes. Not a real natural on-ball playmaker. Much more of a scoring type player, but thought he shot it pretty well. Thought he finished pretty well. And then I thought defensively he was pretty competitive. I thought he did a nice job kind of using his strength, understanding, all right, I could kind of lean on a guy here. I could kind of do a little bit of clutch and grab here to slow a guy up, and quick hands to get some strips and those kind of things. I thought he looked pretty good. Solid summer all around for him.
Yep, I agree. Rollins was a guy actually, scouted a little bit coming out of that draft out of Toledo. Obviously not a big name player, a big name school, but you said it perfectly, play a little bit on ball, but more as a scorer. And I thought he looked good. The shot looked good. The jumper looked good. He shot decent for percentage overall, 3-point percentage, not too bad. Not a guy that's going to create a ton. He threw a couple nice passes, but I thought he looked comfortable, looked like a two-way player.
Yeah, I'm going to skip Tyler Smith and come back to him to close with him, because I think he's the more important guy to talk about. But I do want to talk about Ty Washington real quick. He's an unrestricted guy. He was a two-way guy for the Bucks. Bucks have the two-way spots filled. Their standard roster is filled. So I'm not sure where Washington goes. He might be a guy who might be really well suited to go overseas for a year versus another year in the G League. Kind of get into a real structured system in Europe and see what it can be. The Bucks clearly tabbed him. Let's be a scorer here, because I think they've seen, we can see what you do running a team. You do a pretty good job running a team, getting guys shots, setting players up. Let's see what you can do. It's clearly not what he's comfortable with. I don't think he really wants to do it, but it was okay. Like he did all right with it. I thought it looked okay with that. But he's somebody I wonder if going overseas for a year might not be best.
Yeah, I mean, he was impressive at times. He was aggressive on both ends, attacked off the bounce, at least got to the mid range, was aggressive at the point of attack defensively, but didn't stand out in such a way where I'm like, hey, I would beat down the doors of some of these other teams and like, hey, you need to get this guy on a two-way, and he needs to absolutely be running your G League team. So, like you mentioned, where Milwaukee kind of has a full roster, it'll be. Will he find another roster spot? Will he just, that can't be an easy decision for these guys. Once you go overseas, there's probably a little bit of worry that you never get to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have seen some guys
Yes.
do it and then come back and they're better off for it. Like the one that stands out most for that, I still think is probably the poster before is Anthony Parker. Back in the day, he went overseas as like afterthought, and then came back and became a key rotation player for several good teams later in his career. All right, Tyler
Dante Exum has done it recently, right?
Yeah, yeah, another good one. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, went overseas for a year and came back. So we'll see. Maybe that's what happens with Killian Hayes. We'll see.
Oh no.
All right, let's close with Tyler Smith, final player we're going to talk about here today. I liked what I saw because he got the 3-point shots up and he got them up with ease, and he wasn't like bricking them. They weren't flying like crazy off the backboard or all left short or all one side of the rim or the other. They just didn't go in. And I think Tyler Smith is now kind of the poster boy of this is the modern big. You better be able to step out and shoot it some. But if you're going to be able to do that and give us some rim protection, now we're talking. And I thought he did a really nice job on the glass. And I thought he did a nice job contesting and challenging shots at the basket. He had, a few blocks, I think block or so per game. Yep. With that. But yeah, I thought the rebounding was really good to see from him because he's still pretty light. He's still kind of skinny. So you kind of wonder, is he going to get moved too easily? But I thought he showed some improved strength and looked pretty solid.
Yeah, the rebounding is the thing that stands out. I believe in Tyler Smith as a floor spacer. And again, we've talked about this as a big. If you can space the floor, there's a ton of value in that. If he can kind of give that defensive disruption and playmaking, especially with the blocks, like as a low man rim protector and stuff, that would be huge. But him averaging 7 rebounds a game in his minutes, over 2 offensive rebounds a game is really important. I'm not worried about the 28% from 3. Like you said, he was getting him in the right play types. He's a pick and pop. He's a ghost and pop, a trail 3, those type of things. I think he's going to if he doesn't make shots, it doesn't matter what else he's doing. Like he's not going to do it at a high enough level to stick. But if he makes shots and then he rebounds and does some of the other things we saw, then he's got a real chance and, could provide real value as a stretch, big-ish forward, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, again, probably playing a lot in Wisconsin with the herd this year. I will say this. I think he was 5 out of 13 over his final 2 summer league games from 3. So clearly that's improvement. If that's where he's hitting at, we'll take that, right? That's good enough for what he can be. Bryce, man, I can't thank you enough for doing this with me. We went a little long because we did give some background on it. We'll go quicker through other stuff. Plus these teams, and I'll tell you, I completely did it at random. Like I did a randomizer and picked the divisions because I was like, I'm so tired of doing Atlantic, Central, Southeast, like, and then flowing into the Pacific. So I was like, I'm going to randomize it and go with whatever came out with the Central. These teams had a lot of guys, especially Milwaukee and Indiana brought a bunch to Las Vegas with this. But thank you so much for hanging out with me here. About an hour and a half. We went. Good long show for everybody. This hopefully makes up for the shows we missed earlier in the week. We had a ton of internet issues here in Orlando with weather and everything else. Internet's been out, but we're back and running. Thank you guys for this. We'll come back and do it again with another division. Now I think we know what we're doing. We'll fly through these a little bit more with that. But thank you so much, man.
Yep, absolutely. I had a blast. It's always fun to come on here, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that'll close us out here on NBA Front Office Show. For Trevor on the cruise, for Bryce, I'm Keith Smith. Thanks for hanging out with us. And what does Trevor always close with? Have fun and stay safe.